What's up, everyone? I'm Jay, and today we'll be looking at Dark Shadows and judging it on a 5-star, 10-star, and 5,000 point scale. Let's get right into it. Dark Shadows was released in 2012, and sources differ on what type of movie it is. Netflix and Wikipedia claim horror and comedy. Whatever this is says mystery. They all are fantasy, of course, and I would even claim that it could be romance. We can debate how to categorize it later, but for now, you should know what happens. A wealthy businessman, Barnabas Collins, is cursed by a witch to be a vampire and sealed away until he escapes 200 years later. He returns to find his struggling family business and helps to rebuild it while fighting against the witch who's been cursing his family for centuries. This movie is also based off a 1966 sitcom of the same name, so there's a couple of other interesting characters that get regrettably little screen time. I'll be honest, I enjoyed two things about this movie. First, I like characters that are weird, and more proper than they need to be, and operate with unwavering self-assuredness. Like a rich vampire from the 1700s. Also a lot of villain characters, but not in this scenario. In addition, I like watching Johnny Depp act. Before I stray into the acting portion of this review, I will say that I enjoyed this movie, and I give it 800 points for watch value. This movie gave me something to think about, a quality that I usually enjoy in movies. Something was missing. This movie didn't especially grip me or make me feel any intense emotions, but I don't think I would go out of my way to watch this movie again. I give 400 points for rewatch value. There are some intriguing construction marks on this movie. Being based on a sitcom that ran for 6 seasons, a lot of material was probably cut. However, this movie still does a good job with the storytelling. I never felt like I was missing a plot point, just that I wanted to explore it more. So as an examiner, I could tell that something was missing, but there wasn't enough missing that I was disappointed. Like an extra cheese pizza with your favorite non-pineapple topping, except that the topping is missing. It's still really good pizza with extra cheese. I think this is most evident in 2 parts of the story. One of the characters who we meet early on in the story goes by the name of Victoria Winters, or Vicky. We can tell that there's something a little bit off about her. She has pale skin but very bright eyes, and she is led through the house twice by the ghost of Barnabas's old love interest, who she looks just like. We also get to see a flashback of her childhood, where she's abandoned by her parents after talking to ghosts. Her story seems touching. She finally feels at home with the cursed Collins family because they've accepted her. It's a good story thread, but it didn't hit me particularly hard because she only has about 10 minutes of screen time. I haven't really gotten to see how her life has been affected by her past, or how it has changed for the better. Another case of this is Roger Collins, a widower and father to David Collins. We get from the beginning of the movie that Roger is kind of shifty. He's not a great father to David, and he steals and mostly cares about money. There comes a point in the film where Barnabas confronts him about this, telling him to get out or become a better father. In the next scene, he's leaving his son crying as he gets into a taxi. Again, very emotional for the characters, but only taking up about 5 minutes of screen time. I feel sympathy, but not empathy. I would assume that this story is covered more thoroughly in the sitcom, but unfortunately, I didn't get that from the movie. I give 500 points for writing and plot. And continuing off the last topic, I have no doubt that the stories were lifted up a couple of degrees by the acting. There are so many talented actors that brought the characters to life for the brief time that they were on screen. I wish I could talk about all of them individually, but as is customary, I will pick only a few. And not Johnny Depp or Helena Bonham Carter because everyone knows they're great actors. Actually, maybe a little bit of Johnny Depp. I love his character. More please. Anyway, this movie also features Chloe Grace Moretz as Carolyn Stoddard. She gets to wander around the background of most of the scenes, playing every troubled teenager ever. She performs normally enough to be dismissed as such, and also just slightly off enough to add some mysterious afterthoughts. And then, at the end, she gets to be a werewolf. Victoria Winters and Josette Dupre, the 2 love interests of Barnabas, are both played by Bella Heathcote. I wanted more of this character. The acting very clearly expresses to me that there is something more going on, and the audience gets to see painfully little of it. I give 900 points for acting and voice.
Sculpted entirely of the most exquisite Carrara marble,
Like the vampire said, the set of this movie is beautiful. I hope that the house is real, but even if it's not, you can't tell the difference. The costuming and makeup looks really good. There are some fabulous special effects that come in during the finale of the movie, and it didn't pull me out of the experience at all. I give 800 points for effects and set. For the Dark Vampire movie, I give 3.4 out of 5, 6.8 out of 10, and 3,400 points. I had a good time watching this movie. It had a decent story, some good actors, a good soundtrack, and let me do some analytical thinking regarding how much time you should spend with characters. There are no scenes that really stand out to me, which leaves us with only one more question. What genre or genres does this movie belong to? Well, let's start with the obvious. Definitely fantasy. The presence of vampires, witches, and werewolves is a dead giveaway. What about horror? To be honest, I don't think so. There are two parts to Barnabas's vampire curse. On one hand, he's doomed to watch his whole family die around him while he lives forever. And on the other hand, he's a blood-sucking murderer. This particular story focuses on the family part, which means that there isn't really any suspense or tension that translates to horror. In scenes that could have been horrifying, you're just not focusing on it. The violence level is equivalent to most superhero movies, and I wouldn't call those horror. If not horror, maybe romance. The main plot of this movie focuses on the witch's desire for Barnabas, but he spurns her. It's not so much a will they get together, rather will Barnabas manage to stay apart. Feel free to interpret that as romance for yourself. And in terms of mystery or comedy, there just doesn't seem to be enough of either to classify the movie as such. I wasn't trying to solve a mystery, and I wasn't laughing or even giggling so much. So what do we call this movie? Is there a genre for restoring family and status? Seems like it happens enough in movies. No? Well, let's make one up and call it a fantasy redemption story. Until next time, enjoy entertainment and judge it fairly. This has been Just J Review.